very special places. The salt marshes are endlessly giving, and they are giving to the plants that live in them. They're giving of the animals that live in them. So they're great places for fishermen. But it's that kind of salty patch where the samphires live that's probably the most important, and that's where the plants that take all of the minerals that grow in that are present in the seawater, they take it and they put them into their cells, and you can harvest those plants and you can obtain the minerals. The migratory birds, they feed in the salt marshes. They fly all the way from Siberia every year here to South Australia.
You turn around and there was all the industry, but you could then turn around again and just ignore all that and just take in the beautiful sights. And was always impressed by the samphire through the seasons. You know, the colours in that place are just extraordinary. The purples and reds and greens and it's just a very uplifting place.
Outer Harbour and that peninsula is called Mudlunga. Mudla is nose and Unga is in, at or on. So Mudlunga means at the place of the nose. And why that was important to us, that was like a corral, because that's where we could round up emus. We could chase the emus down to Outer Harbour, and then you could block them off with nets and you could go in and kill them because they couldn't get away. They couldn't run any further because the peninsula stops at the seafront. So it's the natural corralling of emus there. And then the other place that was important was Mutton Cove, because Mutton Cove is where the sea used to come in and make a marshland there, and on the high tides, well, then you could use that as a place where you could use as a natural fish trap, because the fish would come in and when the tide dropped you'd have the fish on the low waters and you can go pick them up. And then not only that, around the river's edge there on the sand we had a lot of place you could dig for cockles and worms, and so it was a really great place for food. You know, you got emus, you got worms, you got cockles, you got fish, and so it was, bountiful. So it was a lovely place to go and see that. And I used to walk there as kids, and there was a lot of sand hills there. It was beautiful country.
My dad was born in 1915 and he grew up in a shack around about where the water tower is now. So all that area down there in those days, all during the 20s, it was, all sand hills and Tyler Creek. So it was a pretty good place for a kid to grow up in. He used to talk about catching rabbits and going fishing and gathering cockles, and evidently there was a whole lot of edible plants that the family could use. Yeah, it was a pretty nice place for a kid. He'd talk about making rafts and going across the river with his brother. But mainly he'd talk about the quicksand, which was evidently a really sticky mud that was made from the dredge spoils. I think he had some scary times with it. So he'd ward us off Mutton Cove. Later in the years, we weren't supposed to go there because of the quicksand, which sounds really funny now.
And so a lot of things were made down in that area, because that's where you'd have reeds and you'd collect reeds to do weaving, and we do a lot of string making too, because you had to make nets, and some of the nets were 100 yards long and 30 yards high, because they used to do the nets to round up emus and the kangaroos, and then they'd have nets to catch ducks and birds in the rivers and and the seafront. They'd do all that sort of thing, and then we'd have a feast of eggs, from all the shags and all the different birds that flock into the coastline.
Mutton Cove for me, when I was a child and even as a young adult, even when we were courting with our Donna, was a departure point for adventures. You had the going over to Torrens Island, which was not allowed, but we still did it.